And I would like to have Mike Dale step up to the microphone and walk through the agenda and call up folks that can give us the latest update.
Sure. Good morning. HWC Engineering is here today to get an overview, give probably an overview of the project, but more importantly, to solicit your thoughts and comments about the comprehensive planning process, understand your priorities, make sure that we're all moving in the same direction with this project. Adam Pieper with HWC and Corey Whitesell are here this morning, and they'll take it from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning. As he said, my name is Adam Pieper, community planner with HWC Engineering and the project manager for your comprehensive plan update. Joined by several colleagues today, as Mike mentioned, Corey Whitesell, who's our director of landscape architecture and planning, Jamie Ford Bowers, who's vice president with the company, leads several groups, Chris Ham, our director of economic development, and then Alec Porman, another planner in our group who will be heavily involved in this process. So expect to see us throughout. We're here several months ago as part of the interview process, had the opportunity to meet many of you, and as well as on the Plan Commission, Councilors Melton and Norris on our project steering committee. So apologies in advance. Some of this will be a little repetitive with the steering committee conversations we've had to date. But as Mike alluded, this is really just an opportunity for you all to provide input and help guide this process on the outset, so that as we continue throughout and our engaging the community in various outreach and input opportunities, and then developing plan recommendations and ultimately coming before the Plan Commission and Council as we get to adoption, that we are all of a common understanding in what this plan needs to address and accomplish, and that we don't get to the end and are at a public hearing and any of you say, well, this is great, but I really thought it was going to include fill in the blank. That's what we want to hear today, so that we know we can ask those questions, get the input we need throughout the process, and ultimately deliver the plan that you are expecting and will serve your interests and goals going forward. So I have, it's not even much of an agenda, but I do have a sheet with all of our contact information if you don't already have it, as well as a process timeline. Thank you. There should be enough for everyone out there as well. But again, I don't want to spend too much time talking about or rehashing the overall process. This is an opportunity for you all to speak. But I will just say, in terms of kind of where we are, we've done our initial kickoff with staff, started our data collection and analysis process. We've developed project branding. Uniquely Zionsville is what we're calling the process, and developed a logo and set up a website with regard to that. We had our first steering committee meeting. We also had a follow-up via Zoom for committee members that couldn't attend that in person. And then we're here today with this, what we're calling the vision workshop. That wraps up kind of the initial phase, and we're moving into our big community outreach and engagement push. Like I said, the website's essentially set up. I believe Mayor Stair shared that with you all. We made a few changes since then. We'll be using that to conduct online engagement with the community survey and interactive mapping tool that's up there. And then moving into in-person events. A number of community workshops will be coming up later in July and August, a series of stakeholder meetings, and some additional online efforts. After we've gathered all that input and kind of see where we have common consensus, see where we have some differing opinions or some big fundamental questions we know we need to answer, which we've already seen come out of some of the initial steering committee discussions. We'll regroup with the steering committee, evaluate all that input, develop initial kind of preliminary vision goal recommendations, share that with the community and what we call the Big Ideas Open House, to make sure we're kind of broad, overarching perspective and in alignment, and then break into the three key plan components: the comprehensive plan, the transportation plan, and the economic development plan. Work with subcommittees of the larger steering committee for each of those, to develop more specific recommendations with regard to those topics. We will then share those at the Community Strategies Open House to confirm that direction, make sure we're on the right track, make any adjustments as needed before we would then create the first draft of this overall document. After that, it's sharing with the steering committee, refining into a public draft, public presentation, updating both of your, the council and commission, and then creating the adoption draft and moving through the adoption process, which leads us into early fall of next year. But really kind of now through spring is our big engagement, drafting, recommendation creation process, and then several months of refinement and adoption. Any questions related to that process? No? All right. Well, then and again, I should say I'm happy to answer any questions, sit down with any of you, get on the phone at any time during this process. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We will also be providing regular updates to Mike and Mayor Stair so that they can communicate that to you all through your regular meetings. And then again, I'll put them on the spot, but say, Councilor Norris and Melton, if you've got questions, they'll be engaged through the steering committee, and hopefully they can help answer those as well.
Okay, so you read the timeline through
Yeah.
here. If I was just a constituent paying attention, what would be the key times that I could review and give feedback?
Yeah.
Because that would be what I think my group would want to know.
Sure. So just in the next couple weeks to next month and a half are going to be a number of opportunities to provide initial input about opportunities they see in the community, potential issues or forthcoming issues, and kind of vision setting. So that'll be July and August here, and there's more specific dates on the backside of this that will also be shared in a bunch of materials coming out here and on the project website. Then the Big Ideas Open House, which will be review of initial vision, goals, direction, is anticipated in the fall. So I think we've targeted September for that.
Okay. So I'm not sure if the people who might be watching would have this agenda, but
Yep.
so they're thinking town hall, Monday, July 29th at 6 p.m.
Yeah, so we have 3 in-person community workshops that are going to be coming up, and we've spread them out over 3 weeks and hit different days, trying to accommodate as many schedules. I will say they are all evening meetings. We've discussed, does it make sense to do one during the day? I think we lose more people than we would gain by having a midday meeting when we look at these broader community engagement efforts. So each of these is an evening meeting. One at Town Hall on Monday, July 29th at 6 p.m. One at the Indianapolis Executive Airport on Tuesday, August 6th at 6 p.m. And then one at the Perry Township Fire Department on August 15th at 6 p.m.
Yeah, so I think that's what people, after hearing your
Yep.
your list of things going, they would want to hear those.
Those are the big ones. And then, like I said, there will be opportunities. If you can't make one of those meetings, we're also going to have an online workshop via Zoom where we will present and facilitate a discussion. We've tentatively set that for August 21st, but need to confirm that. And then, like I said, there is an interactive mapping tool on the website right now where people can provide geographic-specific input related to, whether it's an intersection that's a concern, a property that's a development opportunity, even so far as to draw a line on the map for where a nice trail connection would go, as well as a community survey that we'll be launching next week.
All right, thank you. I see that I basically jumped to the end of the agenda.
No,
by asking
and I understand you have to run, so
I didn't know it was a backside. So sorry.
that's one of the key takeaways from today, in addition to your input. So no, happy to get that on record.
Where's the website, since we're on a public meeting?
Yep.
Can you recite the website? And I don't know if Joe or we could put the agenda online so people could see it, but that would be ideal somehow if we could. And then that schedule will be on there. And you said something about the airport. What was the date on that one?
Tuesday, August 6th.
It's on the back of our agenda. It has
I
it.
don't have one.
Oh, you don't have one?
Mike Dale didn't give me one.
Mike Dale.
And the website is www.uniquelyzionsville.com.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, this is probably, again, I'm not trying to jump to the end. I think it's important, but, for as much as we're getting updated, I think that, this is a public meeting, it's being taped, so I hope folks will continue to dial in. Obviously, I've shared this through my page, and the town council. I mean, we're all trying to do the very best we can to share this. I continue to hear every time we do kind of these types of projects that there are inevitably people who say, I didn't know about it. I never had a chance to do it. So I just hope we have a full court press of promotion from the town. And again, I'm seeing things, but it's busy. It's summer.
Yeah.
People are on vacation. These are coming up. I don't know if there are other ideas on just how to make sure that we're getting this as broadly advertised as possible.
What
Yeah.
about on those utility bill? That most people are still, I know we're trying to get people to sign up digitally, but can we put the website and comp plan meeting times on that? Sometimes we say, hey, a brush pickup is coming up. Because that's the one thing I'm saying it to the world, whoever wants to jump on that. Because I feel like, I don't know if that's Lance's area where you only want utility bill on there, but I think that's like one of our best messaging, because it's already being sent. We don't have to pay extra. And people look at it to see when heavy brush pickup is coming, and then, oh, look, there's a town meeting as well. I don't know if we could hit it on there. I don't know if the printing can be changed, but to me, that would be one place to put something, since we don't read newspapers anymore.
It's a possibility. Is there already a mailer of any type in the promotion?
Yeah, so we just kind of finalized those last dates. So we will have a social media friendly post that we're going to share with everyone. We've also been talking to Caitlin about a press release that will be forthcoming. We'll be getting information out to the steering committee for them to share as well. So yeah,
Okay.
big push coming for all of this.
Yeah, I do agree this, sometimes a hard copy piece in the mail, if there's any budget or piggybacking on a piece that's already going out, can be helpful, but,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're happy to create and provide any materials that you all can use to help get the word out. So,
Excellent.
absolutely.
perfect. Okay.
So yeah, with that, it would basically just like to open it for discussion. Again, I think what we're trying to understand from today is a combination of, your all's vision for the future of the community, and then, big picture, and more specifically, are there certain elements or things you would like this plan to accomplish? And in terms of this planning process, how you may be measuring success, if it is related to community engagement, if it is related to specific elements included in the plan. So I would open it up.
We talked about this a lot during the first meeting, but I guess this is kind of where I think the conversation was somewhat steered, was that this comprehensive plan, the big overarching concern I believe that the town has as to state the obvious, is development, right? And this comprehensive plan will lay out the future framework as to where we will see our green spaces versus potential commercial areas versus, where we want residential. And I think that's the most important part of this, is kind of delineating, especially what the organization that came through the last cycle, the Save Rural Zionsville, that really honed in on their thoughts and concerns with regard to preserving the rural characteristics of parts of Zionsville. you know, I think that's going to be kind of the big issue here is finding, you know, 67 square miles, third largest municipality in Indiana by land mass. We need to make sure that we get it right and that we draw out for the next. I know I originally said 30, 40 years, but I was reminded that it's more like a 10 or 15, 20-year type plan as opposed to a long-term plan. So just kind of my 2 cents on where I think
Yeah.
this is going, and excited to be a part of it, excited to gather public input and see where this process takes us.
I think that people, based on interacting with people through campaigning and then, you know, currently continuing conversations, I think there is the push for control of development and how do we go to people with large farmland lots and say to them, hey, by the way, when you're done with this, can you leave it as is? And the way it was described when we were discussing some of the South Village adjustments would be, you can't downgrade very easily without upsetting people. So it seems like now, while we still have ag and we still have large rural ownership, to somehow get in there in the comprehensive plan and try to encourage the 3 acres per lot or those kind of planning constraints. But I don't know how we are able to do that. Is that just like the comprehensive plan being a suggestion map, but then they can still come before us to change it? I understand that part. But how do we save rural Zionsville? How do we look at the Perry properties that are concerned with too much commercial? Like, we have so many voices, and then we have some that obviously conflict with each other. So I do think people got the impression that the comprehensive plan would save Zionsville. And I think that's one point that I took away from learning more about the comprehensive plan, was that it was more of a suggestion than a law. And I think that's a key narrative that has to continue so that people understand that we are putting all our efforts into directing what could happen, but it doesn't mean that's exactly what's going to happen. Would that be fair to say that?
Yeah, so you're correct in that the comprehensive plan is adopted as a resolution, not an ordinance, which I know we can get into the specifics of what those definitions are, but yes, it is generally a guide, but it should be used when considering ordinance changes, like a zoning map amendment that you all were discussing previously. What does the comprehensive plan say about the future use of this area? Now, so hopefully it gives somewhat clear direction. That's kind of what we have to play this game of balancing predictability versus flexibility, right? And what is the community level of comfort with that? We can say we want to preserve agriculture lands and open space. Now, on the spectrum of just saying that and not having anything to back it up, or being really strict to say, absolutely, this specific property needs to stay agriculture, and then we get into a property rights discussion of, is that what the community wants to do? Identify areas that say this property can develop and this one cannot? Or is there a middle ground that says, okay, well, we'd like to preserve agriculture and open space, and what can the town do to facilitate that, with things like maybe the town taking some responsibility or effort to create a land trust, so that if someone wants to put a conservation easement on their property, there's an easy way to do that, instead of them having to do all the legwork and cost, and then subsequently it doesn't get done, if that makes sense. So to your point, and to Evan's point, you know, there is already this kind of inherent conflict, right, between what we've heard in diversifying the tax base, diversifying employment opportunities, and the bigger preservation goal as well. So trying to find where that, good growth, appropriate level of comfort is.
I think it's just important, particularly for folks maybe listening in, and I know there's a couple of us up here who've been on our second term on this council, and there's many people in this room who've been involved in the Plan Commission for a long time. The current document that we have, so obviously we have a planning document. We have, I call it kind of a patchwork. It's 20-plus years old. I don't think it's adequate, and I certainly don't think it's visionary. It was kind of put together as changes have been made to our community. And I think it's just critically important. I guess this is just really 3,000-foot view, but it's hard for the Plan Commission, it's hard for Town Council, it's hard for any of the folks who are making decisions for our community to not have a better roadmap of what we would like to see. We're making decisions oftentimes without context, and you're kind of evaluating a proposal one at a time. Happens every meeting, every month. And it would just be really nice, and I recognize Sarah's point that it is a guide, it's not, this is how it has to be. But I would hope it would be very, very firm, if that makes sense. I mean, if we're going to spend the time, which we should be doing, and I've been an advocate for this and helping put dollars for this project in last year's budget, so we didn't have to wait, so the mayor could come in and start right away and get this done in the first 18 months. But I would hope that if we are all going to spend the time, and really, that's why I'm so adamant that the community really weigh in. So it's not us sitting up here at the Plan Commission deciding this. This is what the folks from the community would like to see 10, 15, 20 years down the road. This is our chance to get it right. And I think it'd be hard pressed to say, well, we spent all this time, but now let's kind of, get off the map frequently. I think there will be obviously opportunities and decisions that will have to kind of deviate from that, as is always the case. But I would hope that, this really, really gives us a firmer footing as opposed to what we have now. Because it's always, it's an easy excuse to say, it's old, it's outdated, it doesn't work, so therefore we're kind of,
Right.
improving right here. And so I'm looking very much forward to this document. I've seen the struggles of the Plan Commission, I've seen the struggles of the Town Council to kind of look at something in a silo as opposed to holistically trying to figure out where this or doesn't fit into a larger vision for our town. I think that's what's missing. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it. I'm looking forward to this as a tool. I know folks in the Plan Commission are looking forward to this as a tool. But it's not just about development. I think it's a good point to make that it's also about, if preservation is the right word, but Zionsville is unique and it is diverse and there is a rural character that's very important to preserve and grow and develop. But all that I think is important to kind of flush out. Where would we like to see what over the next 10, 15, 20 years? And so that's just for people who are kind of, what is this comp plan? Maybe that kind of helps set the stage. But y'all are here to help guide us through that work, help guide the folks who are elected and the folks who are appointed, but also really encourage the community to come, be vocal, to talk about their hopes and dreams for Zionsville. We're not going to get a document that everybody's going to love, but I think we can come as close as possible to putting something together that we're excited about, we're proud of, and I hope really becomes usable on a monthly basis.
Well, and yeah, I would agree with all of that. And in addition to obviously being usable to the Plan Commission and Council, that it provides a level of understanding and expectation with the community, right? Because just like it's easy to say the current plan is too old and not helpful, they're walking into a meeting with no understanding or expectation of what maybe the development proposal is being reviewed against.
Yeah, and we'd be remiss not to also say it's a great tool for those who are looking to do development. They're kind of guessing too, what's going to be okay, what's not going to be okay, what's firm, what's not firm. I think it really would help folks realize this is what the opportunities are, this is where the opportunities aren't.
And this is what the Zionsville expectation is.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I recently toured the wastewater treatment plant for my second time, and every time I go there, it expands my mind on what the town, what they do, and simply walking by a wall that had a map on the wall that showed our sewer access, the town of Zionsville's sewer access, is very important for the public to know, and let alone a counselor that I thought I knew, but I didn't exactly know our boundary. And that's important for what we just talked about with development moving forward. And that's something that we've had a challenge with in Perry Township of, access to sewer and water and where that goes. So I think developing a strategy, not necessarily a plan, but within the plan of how we maneuver to accomplish our goals, and maneuvering would include working with our neighboring municipalities, and understanding that process is going to be hugely important. We can say a plan and we can say we want this, but if we have to work with our neighbors, which we will, and we will do a great job at moving forward, in my opinion, we need to know that. And that kind of needs to be a little bit in the plan. You talked about measuring success, and I think working with our neighboring municipality is going to be a measure of success, and I think they're going to be a huge part in our success, whether that's their utility or whether that's us working together as a regional economic development partner. We've all showed up here today, online as well as in this meeting in this room, because we have pride of ownership in Zionsville as a town, and I think my measurement of success, and maybe yours, will be a combination of saving rural Zionsville, quote unquote, but maintaining our residential feel, but also by adding increased taxable assessed values, whether it's commercial, industrial, without the degradation of the town's desirability to live here. And I think that is really like my focus on this plan as we move forward. We have pockets of commercial and industrial. In fact, we have residential that was allowed to do commercial, as we saw in the last meeting. And how we bring that all together is really going to show if our plan is working properly as we move forward. And I really believe that that's going to be our measuring success symbol. And, today, talking about at the town council level with our stormwater and kind of strengthening that so that we have this idea that, hey, this is how it is. There is a process. We talked about that. But then on the other swing, we have the planning side, which is, reducing some of the stringencies of our rural abilities with regards to sizes of buildings. I think that's really putting together, the whole town right now, I feel like it's moving forward in a great positive way. But they're doing both things. And I think as long as we can understand that as we move forward, the town's desirability for people to want to move here and be here, that is going to be our measuring stick for success. So putting the wrong things in the wrong area, obviously, too much density potentially can cause an issue. Too much commercial can cause an issue. Too much residential doesn't pay the tax. So that balance is what I intend to look for, and I respectfully hope that I hear some of those topics come back to me as well, that I can cater to those ideas as well. So,
yeah, I appreciate that, and certainly, recognize that early here we're at this high level, and that as we continue, there will certainly need to be a lot more nuance and how, there's different goals or strategies and recommendations for different areas of Zionsville that still fit within this broader umbrella. Yeah.
So, Adam, appreciate, what you guys are bringing, and obviously we've contracted with you because we thought you would be the very best partner to help us get here. This is a joint meeting, and it's a little odd because we're up front and we have a lot of plan commission members who are kind of in the crowd, so I hope everyone realizes that they're here. And it certainly wasn't my thought that this would be just us talking. I would like to have them. So I
Never
guess
come up.
the best way to do it would either be to come be at the mic here or come to the mic here, but I'd like to have the Plan Commission also talk about some of their thoughts and visions and to make sure we're all consistent.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna be getting up pretty soon. There'll be another warm seat.
Four seats up here.
What's up, buddy? A lot of my concerns have kind of been addressed by you guys already. One of the things I think Craig kind of touched on is when we first discussed this thing, we were talking about massive growth in Boone County and the surrounding community in the next 10 years, 10 to 15 years. I think we need to be very aware of what's coming from the surrounding communities as well, whether it be Lebanon, Westfield, Carmel, Whitestown. They're all going to be annexing. They're all going to be coming up. We have some areas where where Zionsville joins these communities, and I'll use North Whitestown for a perfect example. You have R3 zoning, maybe even R4 in some of those housing areas, right across the mag. Long term, we need to figure out how to make that work. So some sort of being aware of what's around us
Sure.
is, I think, very important going forward with this plan. So that was the biggest thing that I had, so that you guys had not already kind of hit on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would piggyback off of that as well. Excuse me. In addition to Craig's comments, I appreciate that the awareness of what's happening in neighboring municipalities is critically important to getting this plan right. With the amount of growth that's expected, through the LEAP district, I think when we were considering who we were going to select for assisting us in this process, some of the statistics I heard were just mind-blowing about how many households are going to be added in Boone County. I think the number was 35,000 in the next 10 to 20 years. It can't be understated. This is a chance to get it right. So how we coordinate with neighboring communities and how we balance what our core values, I think is critical to what needs to be included in this document.
Okay, it was suggested that you guys shouldn't have their names. Just for all the people who don't know how to recognize everybody. So maybe say who you are when you talk.
Just for the record, I'm not Jason Plunkett, so anything I said can and will be used against Jason. So, Brad Burke, Vice President of Council. So maybe as we kind of
Yeah, Nick
comment.
Hopper, Plan Commission.
Josh Fedor, Planning Commission.
Mary Grabanowski, Plan Commission.
Craig Melton, Town Council.
I'm Sarah Sampson, Town Council.
Evan Norris, Town Council.
that would have been great to tee up in the beginning. So
Yeah,
that's
we're
my-
just doing everything backwards.
My fault.
That's all right.
My
We
fault.
got 3 name tags correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here?
I'm listening.
Okay.
I do want to say, I thank you, Craig, for bringing up the wastewater treatment plant. I worry about, as we approve things, what's going to happen to how are we going to manage all the wastewater? And how are we going to manage the water? I mean, we get it, I get it from my well, but, because I'm out in the country, but, and the infrastructure with the streets and the roads, people say we don't want to be like Carmel, but they built their infrastructure before they started developing. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we do have some capacity for expansion in the wastewater. I also toured with Evan. But there is a part of Zionsville that becomes HSE utilities. So we're going to have also that being a consideration for any northern development. And it comes into consideration of cost-effective ways that we could get water to and from people. And I know Lebanon has had, I'm not sure if it still is happening, but they had a stay in permits due to water problems. So,
Yeah, that's important, and I know there's also, and we didn't get John to kind of say anything and welcome, he's free to do that. I know transportation comes up every time we have a conversation, because you can't talk about development and growth and preservation with also not talking about the infrastructure of roads and a plan to kind of move traffic. And I think we need some big decisions made as well around the greater Zionsville area to kind of pre-plan for moving moving people and vehicles. And, you know, I know Lance is here. I recall, and this is the previous council, probably a couple years ago, he did a full proposal on kind of where we are with kind of our sewage, wastewater, and I think we were okay, but Lance, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like maybe 10 years from now, we were potentially looking at some significant changes to make sure we were able to accommodate. So we're good for now. I think long-term, there has to be some dollars put aside to make some significant changes to make sure we can still accommodate all that. Is that a fair statement?
And I will also add, you know, we certainly see this as an iterative process, right? You know, we're going to start by talking about what you all have mentioned, where are areas that are appropriate for development, what kind of development is desired, but we understand we have to evaluate the potential impacts of that from a utility, infrastructure and transportation standpoint to make sure that that works. And if a land use plan or development pattern is going to be unsustainable or result in, you know, traffic impacts that just create a network that doesn't work, we're going to go back and refine that, certainly.
Sorry. There wasn't seats. Kendrick Davis on the Planning Commission.
Kendrick, anything to add about just kind of your initial thoughts or hopes or?
Yeah, I am really excited about the community involvement. I was on the steering committee prior to my appointment on the planning committee, and just listening to the backgrounds. I wasn't able to make the first meeting in person. I apologize, but just the background of the folks. I think there's about 23 or 25 on that Zoom meeting, kind of follow up, and just listening to the history, you know, of the folks that were on there, the diversity and background, and that's one thing that Zionsville, I think, really has going for it, is just the amazing people that live in this community and want to be a part of it. A lot of times you don't get really good involvement. You get involvement from folks that, you know, but I think we have a very good pool of people from diverse backgrounds and mindsets, and have, you know, a lot to offer the town. So I'm really looking forward to that collaboration with them and moving us forward. So I really appreciate, you know, the utility bill statement. You know, how do we get out to the rural areas? You know, can we utilize the sign at Perry Township Fire? Are there little, you know, kind of yard signs that we can put out for, you know, whatever it is? So just, yeah, that huge community involvement, I think, will be very important, because there's just such amazing people that live out here.
I do worry. I mean, I know I'm looking at the dates. These are coming up soon, and I mean, even yard signs could be a really effective communication tool. I just want to make sure that people feel like they've got adequate time to make plans to be at one of these. I do want to hear from the mayor, but I think that what we didn't really talk about, I think we're all on the same page in terms of the vision and what we're hoping for this project.
Mayor, we have somebody, Dave France, online wanted to speak, I believe, if we could.
Sure. Dave, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, so obviously this Dave Franz, Plan Commission. I agreed with Jason Plunkett on his comments related to we've got to update this plan. I think one of the key things is that the original plan that we're working off is the main basis of it was when the tax, you know, property tax situation was entirely different. It's changed dramatically. I think the way the taxes worked back in the past may have influenced, you know, potentially the thought process behind it. The big thing that for us, I mean, every time that we have something that comes before the Plan Commission and it's related to zoning or whatever, you know, there's several factors that we have to consider. One of them is the comprehensive plan, but it's changed so much. I mean, the property has changed so much relative to what the comprehensive plan may have in it, and it's a factor that, you know, we consider it, but it's probably way down on the list of consideration on some of the decisions that we'll forward to the plan or to the town council. So I think a fresh plan is going to
Kind of lost Dave. Yes, I know we may have other town council members on the phone or plan commission members. I would be remiss not to ask if anyone else, I don't know how, did they just text you, Craig?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
If there was someone else who has a comment, please let us know and come off mute. But in the meantime, we'd love to hear from the mayor.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, as I think about this process as it evolves, I think we have to recognize that in the end, not everybody's going to be happy. You know, there are things here that are diametrically opposed. People say things like, well, we want to keep Zionsville the kind of place that people want to move to. Now, on the other hand, you can't say, okay, we don't want anybody to move here because we don't want anything to change. I mean, there's got to be some accommodation there. And, you know, Adam seems like a great guy. You know, we hired HWC because they have a great track record at helping communities with this type of process. But they're not magicians, and they can't make everybody happy. So I think that it's important to me that our community has right-sized expectations going into this. Not everybody is going to get everything that they want every time. And, you know, we need to look at it as a goal, as a plan, but not set in stone, because I think that's probably not the best way to look at the future. I mean, we can try to envision what the town is going to be in 25 or 30 years, and, you know, we may get some of that right and some of that wrong. I mean, you know, but we need to try to cast that vision and follow that vision and see where this process takes us. So I appreciate that so many people are interested in this, and I appreciate the conversations that we've had around this, and I appreciate Adam's approach and HWC's approach to it. But it's going to be a process, and, you know, we have to make sure that at the end, you know, we have something that people can get behind. You're not going to get everything you want. That's what a negotiation is. And I kind of feel like if everybody is a little bit disappointed, we're probably on the right track. So that's what I wanted to say about this. And Dave, you were cut off there. You want to finish what your thought that you had?
Well, yeah, I was just saying that with the comprehensive plan that we're working off, it was, I mean, the original plan was created in 2003, I think, and there's been various modifications, amendments to it, but it's changed so much. The consideration that we give it is probably not as a priority when we're making recommendations to the town council on zoning, et cetera. I think a fresh plan is going to make our job a lot easier. And I agree with you, not everybody's going to be happy, which is probably, you know, like you said, it's probably a good thing. There's got to be some tension. There's going to be some development. People want to move to Zionsville. They want to come to Zionsville. But at the same time, we've got to make sure we can, you know, protect the look and feel of Zionsville, if you will. So I think this is a very important, timely thing that just is, it's a great thing that is getting done.
I got a text that Joe is online, but he said he has nothing to add at this point. But I think it is a very good message to say that no one should feel like they walked out of the room with everything they want, because we are all human with our different opinions. But I do think over communicating the opportunity for people to even just give their opinion sometimes lessens the frustration of the process. And I think that's Brad's point, where we really do just kind of have to over communicate. And can we slap up some yard signs about these meetings? I think that's a good idea. I think
Everybody should be heard, and, you know, there are a lot of different ways to communicate today. I see that Marnie Simon's in the room from The Current. You know, that's a publication that everybody gets, and, you know, that's one way to communicate. Social media is another way to communicate, and, you know, in a town like Zionsville, talking to each other is a good way to communicate too. So we're going to do everything we can to spread the word to make sure everybody has access to the public portions of this, and you know, and every part of the process along the way. I think that's very important. You know, Dave mentioned that the last time we did a comprehensive plan was 2003. And for those of us who were here in 2003, you recognize that Zionsville was a completely different place in 2003. We didn't have the former Perry Township. We didn't have the former Union Township. And we need to focus on those areas to make sure that we have a balance there. You know, somebody mentioned Zionsville's diversity. We have, you know, a brick Main Street that everybody loves. But I know that the people who live in those rural areas, they care every bit as much about their rural heritage and their history as the people in the village care about the brick Main Street. So we need to recognize that, and we need to respect that as we go through this process. And that's what this process is all about. I said you're not a magician. Hopefully you can become one in the next 18 months, because I think there's a lot to balance here, and there's going to be a lot of issues coming your way that I think are uniquely Zionsville. And I think, you know, hopefully we can work through and get to a place where we can have some consensus, not agreement, but consensus moving forward on what we want the town to be in the next 25 years.
Well, and I think Craig brought up a really good point. Some of us are still very visual, and I think as we have these long documents to read and we have things tucked into places, sometimes just a big, I know you hate paper, John, but a big paper drawing that people can pop in at town hall and see on the wall what we're talking about, or maybe even, which I don't know if it will anger people, but to show what was, what is, and what we're hoping will be, because it just shows that it, you know, some people get stuck on one of those pages. You know, I want what was, I want what is, or I want what will be. And it's okay to maybe show all three and just say, we're still Zionsville. We were Zionsville, we are Zionsville, and we're going to be Zionsville. Because that banter that we don't want to be Carmel, we don't want to be Westville, we don't want to be, we keep hearing we don't want to be. Let's just be proud of who we are and not hide who we were or who we are or who we will be. I think that's a good way to reach people too that can't come to meetings. Maybe they just want to feel that they were part of it, and maybe they want to stop by town hall and just stare at the wall or the pictures. You did that with South Village, and I do think it doesn't have to be some extreme, expensive iteration, but I do think that people buy into it when they can be a part of it, and that would be my suggestion. And on that note, mic drop, I have to leave. So if anybody wants my seat.
There's one other thing, and I don't mean to call out people in the audience, but Jim Hurst is a member of the Plan Commission too.
Very good,
And he
Jim.
has a unique perspective, being from the former Perry Township and being a business owner in town. And I'd love to hear from you, frankly. I mean, you come from a lot of different points of view. And you're a good listener, and I appreciate that. But come on up to the
You have to
mic.
come to the mic.
There's an open seat now.
What I didn't know, John, was if we were going to open up the mic beyond just the town council or the plan commission, but if you're, because we have a number of people who may want to be at the mic, or maybe it's just people who are on the steering committee. Maybe that's.
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to you all. Understand, you know, want to be respectful of time, but certainly want to encourage and accept input in any means we can.
Go ahead.
Jim, sorry.
I do not wish to repeat several good comments that were already made today. As the mayor noted, I've got a business near the South Village district, just outside of it, I think. My wife and I live in what is former Perry Township. As it's being set up to be, this needs to be a community-led event. I appreciate being read in, but I will save any thoughts and comments once I hear a little more from our community.
Sure.
And on that, I just had a question. So I know I've heard a couple of times people say, well, like, and especially like on a steering committee, like, what are we doing? And I think making sure we have that direction when we pull those people in will help as far as like objectives for the meeting.
Yep.
I know we have to do the introductory stuff and kind of get everybody up to speed and hopefully on the same page. And then with the diversity that we've talked about, as far as, you know, Union Township's going to be different than Perry Township, right? Perry Township has a rail line. Union Township has a lot of, you know, kind of bigger equestrian now, and then we're trying to connect, you know, when we talk about our neighbors, you know, we're connecting, you know, to different counties, you know. So are we going to take these the steering committees and kind of break them into sections? Because I know being out in Perry with Jim, like, we aren't affected by the village as much as the village is, or we're not affected as much or don't know as much in the Union Township areas. So are we gonna?
So that's, you know, that's one of the reasons why we're doing 3 workshops in 3 different locations. But at the same time, we want to be cognizant that we don't just want Perry Township folks to be having Perry Township meetings and not hearing what folks in the village or former Union Township have to say too. So we're starting kind of spread out, and we will have some specific stakeholder meetings with property owners or residents in these different geographies. But then as we progress, we want everyone to be coming together to, again, hear all of these different viewpoints and make sure that, you know, one group can't be saying, grow over here, while that those folks are saying, we want to keep it just the way it is. A couple other things I do just want to touch on. We will be making yard signs. They are not going to specifically advertise those meeting dates, but they're going to be more general and drive traffic to the website, where then people can learn about both the meeting dates and other engagement efforts, and then see documents as we post those. Happy to discuss community displays for the lobby, or if there's other locations around town, as we have content to share. And then, again, just, you know, to the mayor's comment, we understand this isn't going to be easy. There are tough discussions to be had. We're not going to shy away from those. Just as one example, I'll say in the first steering committee meeting, we were sharing some of the initial analysis we pulled, and, you know, things like a really high average home value or sale price, a high percentage of owner-occupied dwellings, and, you know, seeing those as metrics of success and being a desirable community. The flip side to that is affordability challenges for young professionals, people just out of college. And we see that backed up with the data and looking at the population by age breakdown. You know, there's a healthy base of children and teens, and then the population really declines when we look at that 20 to 35, maybe even 40-year age bracket, and then 40 plus. So, you know, do you want to be a community of really expensive homes that may create barriers to some of the people growing up in Zionsville right now? Or again, how do we accommodate some of that appropriately by mixing or introducing some different housing or dwelling types? That's one of the questions we know we have to, you know, discuss through these community engagement efforts.
So to I just want to, you know, use some strong words there that might trigger this rural guy over here. But I guess the thing to consider too is that Zionsville for, you know, 30 years has been this bedroom community where, you know, you said barriers to entry was kind of one of those things where, but that's what we've been. I'm not saying we need to stay there. I'm saying that's what we've been, and that's what's increased our property values to the point where they are now. We've had a gravel lot on the south end of, you know, the village here for 20 years, and yet our houses just up the street are some of the most expensive in the state of Indiana. And I'm pointing that out because I just really think that as we move forward, and I'm going to listen to my constituents, but this is my point, my moment, and it's really that we need to listen to the residents of Zionsville for this, not the influence of development, in my opinion, as we move forward. Now, I understand there's both things going to happen. We need to understand what development wants to do, but we also need to understand that we are Zionsville. We've created it this way. I've lived here 20 years. I haven't done really much, but I'm saying in general, that's the way that's our style of living that makes us different than your Fishers and your Carmels. And, you know, we just need to understand that. And I think that's very important that we weigh. When you said it earlier, I was thinking, do we weigh the opinions of the residents more than the developers? And I think we should. I think that we should. However, we need to lean on the engineers and the people like yourselves to give us a better understanding of how we're going to move forward. But I just want to kind of.
And I apologize. I'm not advocating for a position on that. I'm just identifying some of what we've already heard. And like I said, there's a conflict there that we know we have to discuss with the residents so that we can get the information we need to craft the plan that addresses their interests.
I got one more thing. Are we identifying this as because this should be updated every 10 years, 15 years. Are we identifying this as a 10-year comp plan? or are we identifying this as a 20-year comp plan? Because there's a distinguishment there between, are we going to be revisiting this in 10 years? Is the town planning on updating this in a timely manner, or are we
Yeah.
going to let this kind
So-
of get pushed off for, you know, and then adopt the counties and areas and things like that? I mean, I think it's great we're doing the plan, but.
I can answer it, or you can, Mike.
Okay, I'll give it a shot, and that is, I wanted to mention that, correct me, the vision's roughly about 15 years, 15, 20-year vision perhaps, but it should be updated. A good planning practice is that document should be reviewed and updated every 3 to 5 years, right? So it shouldn't be viewed as this, we're locked in stone here by any means. You know, every 3 to 5 years, we should initiate an assessment. Are we, for example, are we following the comprehensive plan? Is the town council or plan commission supporting projects that don't conform to the comprehensive plan? Maybe we need to look at those, you know, most recent rezoning decisions or plans that have been adopted and say, you know, maybe we're making decisions that don't conform to the plan. We should revisit the plan. Our philosophy for growth has changed over the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and actually even say, you know, one of the things we often suggest is on an annual basis, both the Plan Commission and Council either have a joint meeting like this, or if you typically have a slower agenda towards the end of the year, use that as the opportunity to say, okay, from a rezoning standpoint, here are the cases for this year. The future land use map generally worked for those, and the comprehensive plan's in good shape, or we ran into issues maybe just in a specific area of town, and that needs to be revisited. There can be incremental updates. We would encourage that, and that this plan needs to evolve. Maybe it's, you know, again, incremental changes on an annual, semi-annual basis, and then wholly updated every 5+ years, but, you know, not write it, create it, work with it until 10, 15 years down the road where it's functionally obsolete and we're starting over like we are.
Yeah, I love that answer. It's kind of a working piece. And even for folks, and we talk about the 2003 document, it's been amended many times. In fact, I think Craig and I have had a chance to, I think, amend it twice in the last 4 years. So, but it's still, it's too chunky, and that's why every 10 or 15 years you really got to kind of come at it fresh all around. But you're going to make changes because you're going to run into things that just don't fit anymore as the environment changes. I think the last thing I would do, just following your agenda, Adam, and maybe since your team is here to be helpful for you, I think I've heard from a number of us up here in terms of kind of what we're hoping to see around the project. I think the thing that might be most helpful for you is this question of what's the measures to success? I think we kind of talked about the success of the plan, what quality of life feels like, but what's the success of the process, right? And you've already gotten some feedback in terms of just making sure promotion gets off, you know, from the get-go with a sprint. I think we should maybe kind of kick around the thought of any feedback of what we think success of the process over the next, you know, few months is going to look like. What are your expectations for him and his team so that he kind of knows that, you know, yeah, we know what we want the project to look like a year from now, but is he on the right track here for the next 2 months? Any feedback, any guidance there?
More than 30 people at each event.
Got it.
I love it. Immeasurable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's real tough to get people to show up to these things. It's tough to get people to open up their mouths sometimes, but they sure do like to open their mouth up afterwards and say, well, I didn't get a chance to speak, right? You guys didn't listen to me. I'm really excited about these meetings that you're going to hear from the public on. I think a measure of success is someone to tell me, oh, I didn't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't hear that in the next few months, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would agree that if we can raise the level of engagement from the public, and we can feel like that the public has really been informed at the outset rather than on the other side, I would use that as a good measure of success. So with that, I had a question. I know on the handout here, you've got the website tied to this July 22nd date. So
Yeah.
for my benefit and anyone that's watching, what's the significance of that date? Is that when the
That's-
map goes interactive, or?
The survey will be live on the website next Monday.
Okay, and that's just, I recognize it's just one tool of collecting information
Yep.
along with the other public events. But yeah, just for me, I think if the public has had a chance to really participate in providing input, that's how I'd measure the success.
One question I had, so just in, like, when we talk about an annual review or 3 to 5 year review, do we, and I don't, maybe this is a question from planning probably, do we keep any type of like heat map or number of times where something is rezoned? So if we put this new comprehensive plan in and we're having to, you know, in a year, we've already rezoned, 75 properties from what we just, instituted, is that something that we track or we can look at kind of at a glance on an annual basis?
We do, maybe staff here, they know better than I do, but we do maintain a map of petitions. I think it's perhaps updated monthly, right, of current planning projects. So on a monthly basis, you can see like a heat map where the activities are occurring. We can generate that information for you on a yearly basis.
And you have your reports, are they monthly in terms of rezones, acreage, lots, and then it tallies, so the December report kind of would serve as the year-end summary?
Right, we generate a monthly report of activity.
Yeah, I love that, and I liked the idea, Adam, that you mentioned, as you're tracking the heat map also, is there consistency within the plan, or are these exceptions or variances off of the plan, which gives you some real sense of, we're just not right in where we are right now, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
And even Mike, maybe, I'm sure part of the process will be going back even the last few years of, where were we wrong a lot of the time, if that makes sense?
And some of it may not ultimately be a change that's needed to the comprehensive plan, it's a change that's needed to the zoning ordinance to implement the recommendations in the comprehensive plan. So the plan that we're updating saying one thing, but your ordinance is, saying another, okay, well then that's what needs
Right.
to change now.
Exactly.
Fewer variances, right?
Yeah.
Gordon.
Might just go back to this, the comment, again, Corey Weitzel with HWC made the comment that we don't want people to say, I didn't know about it. Inevitably, after the first round of this, you're going to hear about it. And what is really important for you to understand is that we set this up as initial feedback and then a series of validations through the process. So if someone did not hear about it the first time, which is inevitable, we have so many steps in this process so that becomes this great invitation to participate in the next round. So it's an initial round of feedback. We do an open house to present what we initially heard. Then we start working in subcommittees to really detail things out. That process has another open house. And then only after that is when we start writing things. And so throughout this process, just realize, keep inviting people to participate. They didn't hear about it the first time. There's so many others, and we want participation at all of those levels because that is what's going to make this good. Because one of the things that you'll find out in this is that after the first round, we're going to hear things, and you are going to feedback on it, give us feedback and say, that's not quite right. And so each one of these steps corrects what we hear initially, and because we go through those corrections, that gets us closer to that end result that we're looking for. So yes, you are going to hear a little bit of, I didn't know about it, and that's great because that's the invitation to come back and keep participating throughout this extended process.
I appreciate hearing that. I think it's important because, again, we see this a lot. You got to kind of, the feedback loop continues, right? Because you put it up front, and then I want to react to what you're putting in front of me, right? Multiple times, and then at some point, But I think that's so. What you're going to hear from people is just kind of wide open, any and all feedback. But at some point, they're reacting to something that they're seeing that's coming together. So I think that's important to hear.
That steering committee process in this is to help filter through all of the feedback and say, here's where we think the consensus is among all of that. I will tell you, the best plans that we work on are the ones where that next tier, those second tiers, gets good feedback at those next tiers, because that's when we correct it, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And that little bit of correction, just a few degrees, will make a huge difference in how proud you are of this plan a few years down the line.
So Adam, wrap up, or Mike, any closing thoughts, and then I'll ask if anyone up here has any parting wisdom, and then we'll adjourn.
Yeah, so again, just to go back to where we started in terms of next steps and upcoming engagement. So the website is available today. The map is on there. The survey will be forthcoming next week. And then really these in-person community workshops the end of this month through the middle of next month. Just want to get really great participation at those to inform our key next step. So visit the website and keep following along.
Mr. Dale?
Thank you, and I'll just close to say that the goal here is to be truly a community plan. It's your plan, it's the property owners, business owners, your constituents, it's their plan for growth in Zionsville. So it's very clearly, follow the morals and the values of the citizens and owners of Zionsville.
100%. Any other thoughts? Was that kind of a mic drop moment? Yeah, if you're listening, I mean, again, as everybody in this room, just talk to your neighbors. It's a small enough town, everyone talks. We all know how to communicate, but I just hope that in this next month that we get a number of people. Am I missing something, Craig?
Just want to repeat.
Yo.
Uniquely Zionsville. Just make sure you end with that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I just wanted to add one thing, if I can, real quick, Brad.
Yeah.
We have some needs for people to be on the outreach. Excuse me, Alec. What word am I?
Stakeholder.
Stakeholders. Thank you. The stakeholder groups. Anyone out in the universe that's interested in being a stakeholder that hasn't already identified, so feel free to reach out to me, enorris@zionsville-gov. Happy to put you on that list.
So please remain engaged. Please be vocal. Please be active. We want you to be a part of this process. We need you to be a part of this process. The website is www.uniquelyzionsville.com. Let's all have that memorized so that we all can direct folks and visit ourselves. So with that, I will adjourn this meeting.